We've all been there. That feeling where you can't stand the job that you have and you know that you deserve more. What if I told you that the job that you hate can actually be the key to building the dream life you desire? That's exactly what we're going to be talking about today, because this is a question I've gotten a lot recently, and it's something that I personally have experienced. I once was in your position. Exactly 1 year ago from this month, I had a job that I hated at the time. And hate is a strong word. I actually don't like to use the word, but in my mind, there were many points where I felt like I did hate my job. So before I go any further, in this video, I want to share with you how I was able to turn a miserable, unhappy life experience in my career and turned it into a six-figure business that I actually look forward to waking up to every day. How to transform a negative experience in your life, and specifically a job that you might hate, position in your life you're just not happy with, how to take that unhappy experience and turn it into something amazing. Whether we realize it or not, things are put in our life and in our path for a reason, including the jobs that we don't like. The last job that I had before I got laid off in December of last year, just to give you a little bit of context, this was probably the most left field job that I had from any of my other jobs. I worked at that job for I think a good 4 or 5 years, and which was also the longest time I had ever been at a company. I somehow fell into this trap of being comfortable. There was times where I was so frustrated that it was hard to be grateful for that job. But there were so many times that I remember being yelled at, cussed out on the phone by some of these people because I couldn't make something happen for them, to the point where I remember a few times I hung up and cried. But it was also just knowing that I knew this was not the life of my dreams. I knew that I was too talented, too creative to be in this position. I knew that I had so much to offer in the world, but I was so frustrated because I didn't know what that thing was. I am not special. No one here on this planet who's had any kind of success is not special. It's just that we didn't give up. The very first thing that I want you to do is acknowledge the situation you're in. I am not going to tell anyone to dismiss the hard feelings you may feel from the job that you might have or the job you might not have, but acknowledge first your emotions are valid and you're not alone. It's very frustrating, and it's frustrating especially when you know that you have something to offer and maybe you just haven't figured it out yet. You know you're not supposed to be in the space you're in right now, and you almost anticipate the future so much because you know. Then once you've acknowledged, I want you to reframe your mindset. Okay, reframe your mindset from thinking this job sucks, I hate this job, and think of it as, wow, you have a consistent paycheck, which I realize now as a business owner, it's such a blessing we take for granted, especially when we're at a job we don't like. A consistent paycheck is a huge blessing. No matter what size your paycheck is, it is a blessing. It might not be a perfect situation, but I want you to start thinking about what things are good about the situation and look at where you're at as a stepping stone. We don't have to attach our identity to the place that we're currently at. A lot of times, the mistake that I even made was I was attaching my worth to my current situation, my job that I did not like and that I felt like I really didn't fit in. But what I realize now is we have to look at it as a stepping stone to building our dream life. That's it. It doesn't have to be this big deal, this big thing where, it determines how valuable you are in the world or how invaluable you are. It's merely a stepping stone. The mindset shift is knowing that it is temporary. There were so many times where I would have breakdowns and I would go through like a whole day being super grumpy about the things that I had to go through. I would bring myself back to rethinking, shifting my mindset and saying, okay, Krizia, and there were many times where I had pep talks to myself, literally, and I would say, Krizia, this is temporary. This is not forever. I know, even though I've been here for 4 years and it feels like I'm stuck, I reminded myself that it's temporary, and that's something I highly recommend you do. Just because it's not on your timeline doesn't mean it's not happening for you. Your dream life is happening for you behind the scenes without you even realizing it. Next valuable tip, extract lessons from your job. I don't care what job you have. You could be flipping burgers. You can be working in an office. You could be doing so many random jobs. There's always going to be lessons to pull from that job. Whether it's the people you work with, learning how to be patient, how to have resilience, how to be fast, how to multitask. You will be so amazed what you start to see, notice, get ideas from, once you start being really present and focusing on the lesson you can get out of every situation, including and especially the negative ones. Like, for example, the job that I had that I was telling you about that I felt like was so far off from any job that I've ever had, and me not being a tech girly in a tech business and somehow finding my way to work in this company for 5 years, I had to learn so many things that I had never learned before. I was communicating with different people in different cities. At the position that I had, I learned to pitch ideas. I learned to be more organized because during the time that I was working at this company, it actually got bought out a couple of times, and they changed management and management styles so many times that every new manager that I had to adapt to the style of presenting that they wanted. I had to adapt to the different type of communication that I had to have with them. I learned how to create presentations. Before I got laid off, the manager that we had at the time was very strict on asking for presentation slides to recap our work. I didn't really have a lot of experience with that before, but being put in that pressure allowed me this opportunity to pick up new skills. And I use some of those skills to this day. Like when I pitched to brands on my own, I would create a slide and pitch myself. You know, some of you might be thinking, well, not my job, not in my case. That's not true. Is there a difficult person that you've worked with that you had to learn how to communicate with? When I worked as a barista, I got yelled at by people who were upset about their coffee being wrong. And I was like, what could I pull from this experience? But I learned how to be fast and multitask in that job, because when you work as a barista, you're like doing 10 things at a time. Like you had to memorize all the coffee recipes, all the drink recipes, and you're like taking orders while making 3 drinks at a time with totally different recipes. And I learned to be quick, be appreciative for those lessons. If you want to work for yourself, you should know that you have to wear many hats when starting a business. I'm so grateful for the many hats I wore in different careers because those came very in handy. We get so down on ourselves about where we're at and like, oh, I hate my job. Like, I don't feel inspired. I don't feel motivated. Use it as fuel to move forward. A lot of times that frustration really drove me to work that much harder in my business when I was doing it part-time while working a full-time job. Having that frustration from my job often was channeled into me building my business on the side because it had me so determined to think, I'm gonna make sure that I never have to work for a boss again. I'm gonna make sure of it. That frustration I used as fuel. Well, honestly, I went like so in. Like, I don't even know how I did this while working a full-time job, because now that I'm working full-time as a creator and running a business, like sometimes I think, how did I manage to film that many videos in my lunch? And like I would be answering calls and then I would take my break and then I would film like a couple of TikTok videos and I would edit them really quickly. And, you know, I was just like, I was going and going and going. And I honestly posted like for a year straight without missing a day because that's how focused I was. Let it fuel you. Let it inspire you. Like, let it light a fire in you to just, you know, if you really don't want to be in the situation anymore or at that job anymore, you have to channel that frustration into motivation. Get to planning your escape, because remember, no one can change your life except for you. Next, very important, smart thing that you need to do is don't wait till you get laid off. By the time I got laid off, I had not planned on going full-time into running a business, but the universe knew that it was the right time, I guess, because it really pushed me to lean into trusting that I was ready, even though I did not feel ready at all. In order for you to take that leap of faith when timing is on your side, when that right opportunity comes up, is you need to be ready for it. When I say ready for it, I mean you have to start planning now. When that opportunity comes, if you're not prepared mentally or whatever it is, financially, you're going to be thrown off and you're not going to be able to take that opportunity the way that you really want to. And you're going to probably be super bummed out about that. So be prepared. Start planning your exit strategy now. Start building a business on the side. Start taking it seriously, like your life depends on it, because it does. To have gotten laid off right before Christmas, I remember that feeling reading that email in the car and knowing that I wasn't going to get my severance package too, which was going to be my last line of hope to have a little bit of cash. I completely lost it for a second. And then I remembered, wait a minute, I've been building my business while working at this job. I'm so grateful that I have this now because now I can go all in. And I did feel a sense of readiness, even though I didn't completely feel confident. I definitely felt like I had at least built the right foundation to take this seriously when that opportunity came up. So don't wait for something tragic like getting laid off to happen for you to start. Always have something else going for you. You know, another mindset shift that I had was this job that I have is funding my business. I looked at it like that because in a way it was. I was able to get a steady paycheck every 2 weeks while building a business. It was almost like I had an investor who was investing in me because every time I got paid, yes, I would pay my bills, but it was allowing me the comfort to build without having a scarcity mindset of whether I was going to be able to pay rent or not. Because building a business without a job, in my opinion, is a lot harder because you don't have that funds unless you're super rich or wealthy or you have a rich uncle or mom who can help fund your business, but I didn't have any of those. Okay, so some actionable steps. Let me know what your dream life or career is in the comments. I'd love to hear from you about that. Depending on what your goals are, you could either start building the actual business or start posting the content while you have your job. Because you have a job and a steady paycheck, there's so much that you can do to further yourself along, even if you aren't ready to start a business or you have no idea what you're going to start. Use this time to gather information, get so much resources, talk to people who are in the field you want to be in or you think you want to be in, and start collecting data. Ask a ton of questions. One thing that I did a lot too, Google is your best friend. There's so much free resources out there on the internet. You just have to dig it up and find it. Take things into your own hands. You know, you are in control of your life. During the time that I had my old job, I also had started an Amazon business. And during the time that lockdown happened, this is the time where I launched my Amazon business. And I used all that time to soak up so much information about how to start a business, how to run an Amazon business, which was very complicated, speaking to suppliers about building a product, building up my skills. If you aren't even sure where you want to start there. Start by building knowledge, skills, read books, talk to people, try new things, just make use of your time. It did take a lot of sacrifice. There was so much during this time of like building my business, even whether it was the Amazon business or the business I have now, dedicated like 6 months, right? Give yourself a time frame. Dedicate 6 months to learn as much as you can about one thing or multiple things. Like give yourself a timeline to fully lock in. I had spent pretty much all my weekends learning, reading books, learning websites with all my notebooks, taking a ton of notes, building my exit strategy. You know, look up interviews. I would watch them and try to pull something from their interview so I could apply it in my situation. Another thing that I did was when I had this job that I didn't like, and there were so many days where it was hard to want to show up to work, even though it was remote, I was going crazy. I would dread it so much. And I remember at one point, like it was starting to kind of show because kind of starting to be a little rebellious to do things because I just felt undervalued also. There was a point in time where because I had been at this company and I had actually jump-started a couple of projects for them and I was promised that I would get a raise for it and I didn't, and I had to fight for this raise and it never happened. I was starting to feel undervalued very much and I started to do even less and less and less, and I was just like, I don't want to be here. And it was clearly showing. But a mindset shift that I had that was really important was I told myself, you know what? How you do anything is how you do everything. If I'm showing up like this, then that's gonna be how I show up when things get tough in other parts of my life, when I start a business. And that is not who I wanted to be. I don't know what happened. I just switched my mindset and I would show up to work and I would be a little extra positive and just, you know, kind of being more free about it, where I was like, you know what? I'm already building my exit plan. I'm not going to be here. So why am I stressing? And that changed so much for me. Like I started having better work days. Around that time, this is when it was leading up to like things in my business starting to take off on the side. So I really believe that me just not blocking myself from future blessings by being like bitter and holding this resentment towards a company when it was so silly. When I think about it, when I was like, why was I even really upset? Like those next few months up until I got laid off were just like happy for me, a calm feeling in a way. And a lot of people were like, are you worried? Are you concerned? I remember my parents were so concerned. They're like, are you worried? Are you okay? Like what's gonna happen? And I'm just like, I'll figure it out. But I had already decided in my mind, that's why, that this was gonna be my new path. So nothing that happened at this job anymore was gonna make or break that difference. In the end, remember that your job doesn't define you. Your environment of where you're at right now does not define you. This is all just part of your story. If your story was just straight up success from beginning to end, like how boring would that book be? Think of your life journey as a book, and some chapters have down moments and some chapters have big wins and celebrations, and you do need both. If you made it to the end, let us know in the comments, what is one thing that you're gonna do or you're already doing to turn your frustration into your future life? I love you so much, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.